Hey YouTube, Mike the Alpha Hoarder here. Today I'm going to feed my hoard with a few cards, and then I wanted to answer a couple of the questions off my 1K Q&A, which, by the way, sort of crazy. I'm up to hovering around 1,200 right now, which is wild. I suspect we're getting close to the full saturation of a channel like this, but you know, I'll endeavor to keep you entertained. But anyway, when I hit 1,000 subs, I prompted my viewers for some questions, and I've been sort of slowly getting to those in the videos recently, and I'm gonna try to bang out a couple here, see how far we get. So the first question that came up is, what sacrifices am I making when buying all these alpha cards? Is this simply money that would have gone into some index fund, but instead I prefer investing it here? And a similar question was, do you do other investments such as stocks, bonds, etc.? And why? To take those in reverse order, yes, I have exposure to mutual funds, ETFs, index funds, individual stocks, Bitcoin and Ethereum, bullion, real estate, and collectibles. Not in that order, not equal across, across those categories, but all of those categories are represented. Clockwork Beast. Cool card. This is Drew Tucker, I believe. Drew Tucker art. He's the same guy that does Exorcist. It's this very sort of abstract, very unique style, especially in, the old sets. Awesome card. And then, yeah, it is pretty much what the first question said. So, I make good money. It's a relatively recent thing for me. I graduated college with student debt. I got a regular job as a computer engineer, and I did well there, but by my fourth year, I sort of was feeling the limits of, being an employee, and it just wasn't for me. And so I went to business for myself, and I spent a lot of time not really making much money at all. For many years, my wife was the breadwinner, and we made do on, her nursing salary, which wasn't nothing, but, wasn't a ton. We made do. And I learned to live on that sort of income and to not resent it, which I think was the more important lesson I picked up. And so when my financial situation improved, I really did not scale my lifestyle up in proportion to it. Which is not to say I didn't scale it up at all, but by and large, investments aside, of course, I really live the way someone making, a tenth of what I make would live. I drive a scratched up Sequoia. My wife's got a 10-year-old CRV, no fancy sports cars. Generic clothes from Kohl's I like to wear. My wife has no interest in jewelry or designer bags or anything like that. Neither of us. And we live in a house that suits me and my family. Keeps us comfortable. Here it's sort of an upper middle class New York suburb. And, that's enough. That's enough for me. And, there's exceptions, of course. There's sort of the transient things, like a family party, say, or a family vacation. I might blow the budget a little on things like that. But in terms of recurring expenses, things that are going to be hitting my cash flow, there's really not all that much. I really try to keep that pretty clear so that I can route most of it towards investing. And everything above sort of the basic living expenses goes, has gone into clearing debts and building up my portfolio. The biggest portion of which is probably real estate, accumulation. And the most recent of which is alternative assets, like collectibles. But before I was doing any of this, I paid off all my debts, including my house. I max out my retirement pre-tax vehicles that are available to me, which is it's an IRA and a SEP for my situation. I contribute to a post-tax account, sort of on pace to let me retire in maybe 15 years. I'll be in my late 40s, something like that, early 50s. I mean, after all that, and by living below my means, the extra revenue was sort of entirely available to reinvest into my businesses or into some of my hobbies. And so that's how I get to where I am with this. And if I didn't buy these cards, I'd just be investing that money somewhere else. Nothing in my daily life would change. And the sort of unasked question that I'll answer anyway is that would actually be my advice to others as well. This stuff is speculative. It could go to nothing. Most collectible categories fail. If the money that you're spending on this could make an immediate difference in your life, you really should consider the opportunity costs and the risks with going this way instead. Because, maybe this stuff isn't the best decision. It probably isn't. Very nice. Animated. I love this art. I love the red. I love all these things bursting out of the ground. It's just so cool. Great start so far. 3 rares. Whew, very nice. Let me just actually emphasize that a bit more before I hit the next question. This stuff, it probably isn't the best decision for you, and it's probably not the best decision for me either, right? Like, let's just be super clear about that. I have very little doubt that if we were to sort of do the final accounting, at the end of my life, the cash flow that could have been generated off of a rental property, or even the growth that I would have seen if all of this was instead put into the stock market. See a little surface here. I suspect both of those things will outperform this stuff. And so if all I cared about was maximizing the money, making the most that I could possibly make, I wouldn't do this, because it wouldn't be the best decision for me either if those were my priorities. But I've said it before, to me it's actually more than that, and I really mean it when I say that. It's about passion and the love, and because I have the other things in good order, I can sort of afford to have a portion of my portfolio underperform, even trending sideways, hopefully not going to nothing. That would suck, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. So I'm not in this to make money. I do actually think it will. I think it will appreciate. I believe in the hobby, but I don't need it to, and that's sort of important. So anyway, so that's the answer to that. What's my favorite format of Magic? Okay, so I do always say that I'm not a player, and it's not because I don't play at all. I do actually play, but I play not very well and not very frequently. And I don't know enough about the game to speak intelligently about its nuances, so I prefer to just make it clear that I'm really not a player. But I do in fact play, and I love the game. The format I enjoy the most is Constructed. And I'm not sure if what I do would be considered vintage or legacy, but the way we do it is basically you can play with any card you want, and then just sort of by unspoken respect, nobody really plays with cards that are worth more than like $100. We just don't. And yeah, that's there's still plenty to choose from. But believe it or not, to this day, even with all these cards, I've never actually built a deck that contains any Power 9 or any dual lands. I couldn't afford them back in the day. I didn't have them. And the playing that I do now is just not with a group of people that has access to that, and I, don't really have any interest in being the only one that's playing those kind of cards, so I just don't. And it doesn't really feel like it holds me back all that much. What have we here? Ooh, Drain Life. Let's see, am I going to crack this guy out? I would usually crack out an 8. Yeah, I think I will. It's a pretty clean 8. Surface 7.5. Alright, well, with a surface of 7.5, there's bound to be... Oh, there it is. There's bound to be a good fingernail clip or something in there. What's that? Cool. Another Drain Life for the Hoard. I love the idea of Commander. That just sounds like so much fun. I've made 2 attempts at putting together Commander decks. It was a sort of vampire themed one and a dragon themed one, and they were both terrible. They were really bad. Hey, there's a lot of strategy in that format, I can tell. And I just haven't sort of had the time or the inclination to really work it out, and so I really just haven't played too much in there. But I do love the idea of Commander. I think it's cool. But I suppose my favorite is Constructed. This is giving me a little trouble. Let's see if I can do this without damaging the cards. There we go. All right, someone else asks, how many complete sets of Alpha do you have? Do you plan to get more sets? Okay, so here's the thing. Whales come in different sizes, and the differences between them are sort of almost hard to imagine. I have come to accept that I'm a whale. Chuckle at me for phrasing it that way if you want, but I don't see myself that way, really. And the reason is because when I look around at the other people who have that title, it's leagues ahead of where I'm at. But, I do accept that from the proper perspective, I definitely am a whale. The thing is, the sort of, I don't know, the exponential nature, I guess, if you're talking about the top echelon of anything. I'm aware of the whales that are above me, so to speak. And compared to them, my entire collection is like a rounding error. I know people who have 20 Alpha Mox Sapphires, first or second hand. I know of people who have multiple play sets of the Alpha Duels, hundreds of copies of some of the common cards, things like this. I mean, there aren't many people like that, granted. There are not many, but there are some. Compared to these whales, I'm a small fish. I got into this hobby really way too late to sort of have that quantity of cards, especially when you're talking about power and things like that. Ooh, I love this card. And there's people who were in this hobby sort of all along. I left it for many years. But, not that long ago, spending power was 10, 20 times what it is today. And, there's collectors who make 10 and 100 times what I make. And, they were buying cards when the cards were 100th of the price. Just think about what that means. So the answer to the question is I have only one complete set. And it's probably going to stay that way. I have multiple uncommons sets. I have multiple common sets. I have multiple copies of many rares. But there are 17 rares that are standing between me and a second full set. And a little more than double that if I wanted 3 full sets. But, the cost of those missing ones is just too much to justify. Basically talking the duels, most of the power cards, Need another copy of Wheel of Fortune. Chaos Orb. I love the art on this card. So cool. One of the other decks that I made is a color change deck. I use this card and it's fun. I like that one too. But anyway, I just don't see that happening. Finishing another full set, it's just so expensive. You know, you got to look at the opportunity cost and what makes sense, and that you know, that just doesn't make sense for me. So yeah, I'm not one of those whales. I'm just one of the regular whales. I guess. All right, let's do one more. Okay, so I got the question. Let's say I have $1,000. What should I buy as an investment in MTG cards? Okay, so that's a good question. That sort of question is pretty common. Man, as always, I'm just thrilled. I do tend to get lucky with the condition on many of these. Not all of them. This guy's got a little wear on the edge, and I can't quite catch it on the camera, but there's something going on with the surface here. But not complaining, because many of these are just in excellent condition. I'll take what I can get. Okay, so you got $1,000. What should you buy? Well, okay. Not investment advice, all that good stuff. You know, I can't tell you what's smart to do with your money, but I can give you some thoughts, and then you can juggle them in your own equation as you make up your own mind. Let's put it that way. Okay, so this question you could take in a couple different ways, I guess. One way would be, okay, you've got only $1,000 and you're looking to invest it. What should you buy in MTG? Real simple answer there. If all you've got is $1,000, don't touch collectibles. Don't touch magic cards. Don't touch anything. What you need if you only have $1,000 right now is you need to work on your income and you need to work on your emergency fund. And that $1,000 is not enough, nor is it the right money to start putting to work. You should figure out a 5-year plan for building your income, to start saving, and that's what you should be focused on if that is the stage you are at. Okay, so suppose instead you've got $1,000, you're financially established, but you haven't entered collectibles before. And so you want to come into collectibles for the first time. Well, I'll share a few thoughts on that, I suppose. It seems to me that the older and the more rare something is, the less risky that item is within the hobby. You know, there are only 1,000 alpha rares. So you really don't need that many avid collectors competing for the prices to skyrocket. You compare that to something like a revised rare, where there's, you know, say $250,000, you need a much bigger hobby for that to still have value. It seems to me that if this hobby fell off a ledge and lost 80% of the interest, astronomical numbers like that, there's still going to be more than enough people to want to compete over 1,000 copies of Sleight of Mind. And so, you know, if you're entering collectibles for the first time, I would personally suggest that you consider seeking the items that are the lowest risk and or the highest liquidity. And this would be sort of high condition, raw or graded cards from ABU, Arabian Nights, Antiquities, and Legends. Sealed Golden Age and Silver Age stuff, I do consider pretty low risk, but it does require a lot more knowledge to sort of safely buy and sell that stuff, so it's maybe not the best choice if you're new to the hobby. But you know, if you focus on maybe some cards like this, you can then familiarize yourself with the hobby, the nuances, you know, the risks, the market, without being more exposed than you need to be to the sort of speculative side of the MTG stuff. And then, you know, once you sort of know your way around the hobby a bit more and you can properly evaluate the risks, then you can sort of decide where to go from there. And then the, ooh, that's a nice stack. The third way to answer that question would be, suppose you are financially established, you're also familiar with Magic, and you're, you know, in the collectibles. You just want to throw another 1,000 in today. Where should you put that 1,000? All right, nice set of cards. Man, I need to stop buying Jumps. I have so many copies of Jump. It's getting silly. All right, let's take a look at these. All right, so you're already into Magic cards. You're already financially established. You understand the risks. You're comfortable with the speculation. You got an extra 1,000 you want to throw in. Well, I'm buying Alpha cards, so, you know, hopefully the channel name will tip you off to the bias embedded in that answer. But, you know, there you have it. Look, it's totally possible that there's a greater upside potential in, you know, say a beta uncommon compared to an alpha. It's possible a revised 9.5 has got more upside than an alpha. I don't know. Only time will tell. But I can tell you I'm buying alpha. I think it's one of the least risky areas in the hobby. I think the cards are reasonably liquid. I mean, if you're willing to go to an auction price and settle a bit below market value, you can sell pretty much any alpha card, you know, within a week. These things don't sit there on auctions. The only time they sit there is at buy and now prices. So, you know, yeah, it is fairly liquid, you know, depending how close to market value you need to recoup. And I also think that they're the most stable against market fluctuations. I mean, we've seen that in this most recent downturn. When people have to sell cards, when you know, prices are going to drop, it's going to impact cards like this much less than it impacts, you know, cards like a revised dual land, say. Just because more of the people who hold these cards are people who can hold them through most storms. And then the people that do need to sell them at a time when things are bad are most likely selling them to somebody who has the means to weather those sorts of storms. And so there isn't really a need for the price to go down as much. And that's why I like alpha. It is also insulated against shenanigans that Wizards might pull, as we've talked about. You know, the 30th anniversary stuff like this, you know, who knows what they might do next. You don't have to care, so you're just removing risk factors. If you're dealing with alpha, you're just removing risk factors. You don't remove them all, but it's what I like. And so, you know, call me biased, but hey, if you asked me the question, I guess you get my answer. Man, look at that take. Whew. I love opening this stuff. This is fun. Beautiful cards. All right, that's enough for tonight. It's pretty late over here. Thanks for joining me as always. I really appreciate your support. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and write me a heartfelt limerick and leave it in the comment section. See you next time.